Hello students, my name is Dr. Sandeep Walia and today we are going to discuss about the module People, Role as a Tourist and Host Community. My dear students, after completing this module, we shall be able to understand about the concept of host community or the host population. Then we shall also be able to discuss and understand about the concept of interdependence of stakeholders. We shall also be learn about the impact of tourism on the host population. The tourism industry as part of the service sector has become an important source of income for many regions and even for the entire countries. The Manila Declaration on World Tourism on 1980 recognized its importance as an activity essential to the life of nations because of its direct effects on the social, culture, educational and economic sectors of national societies and on their international relations as well. Global expenditures on travel have more than tripled since the turn of the century, rising to the US dollars 1.5 trillion in the year 2008 and accounting for 7% of global exports in goods and services as per UNWTO. According to the recent World Trade Organization estimates, tourism is the fifth largest traded services sector which was revealed by WTO in 2019. The hospitality industries which benefit from tourism include transportation services such as airlines, cruise liners, ships, trains and taxi cabs, lodging which includes hotels, motels, homestay, resort and renting rooms, and entertainment venues such as amusement parks, restaurants, casinos, shopping malls, music venues and theaters. This is in addition to goods bought by the tourist including souvenirs. There has been an uptrend in tourism over the last few decades, especially in European countries where international travel for short breaks is very common. Tourists have a wide range of budgets and tastes, and a wide variety of resorts and hotels have developed to cater for them. For example, some people prefer simple beach vacations, while others want more specialized holidays. Quieter resorts, family-oriented holidays, or niche market target destinations. The developments in air transport infrastructure such as introduction of jumbo jets, low-cost airlines and more accessible airports have made many types of tourism more affordable to local people. A major factor in the relatively low cost of the air travel is the tax exemption of aviation fuels. The WHO estimates in 2009 that there are around 500,000 people on board aircraft at any given time. There have also been changes in the lifestyles. For example, some retirement age people sustain year-round tourism. This is facilitated by internet sales of tourist services. Some sites have now started to offer dynamic packaging, in which an inclusive price is quoted for a tailor-made package requested by the customer upon impulse. There have been a few setbacks in tourism, such as the September 11 attacks and terrorist threats to tourist destinations, such as in Bali and several European cities. Also, on 26 December 2004, a tsunami created or caused by the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake hit the Asian countries on the Indian Ocean, including the Maldives. Thousands of lives were lost, including many tourists. This, together with the vast cleanup operations, stopped or severely hampered tourism in the area for a time. Individual low price or even zero price overnight stays have become more popular in the 2000s, especially with a strong growth in the hostel market and services like couchsurfing and Airbnb, thereby being established them. There has also been examples of jurisdictions where a significant portion of GDP is being spent on altering the primary sources of revenue towards tourism, as has occurred, for instance, in Dubai. Let us now discuss about people in tourism, tourists and the host community. Dear students, global tourism is one of the biggest and fastest growing industries. Provisional data indicates that destinations worldwide registered around 1.5 billion international tourist arrivals in the year 2019, an increase of 3.8% year on year. This was the 10th consecutive year of sustained growth. But the more muted growth trends in 2019 reflects weakening economic growth, concerns about international trade, and reducing consumer confidence. The benefits of tourism, mainly economic, have been enormous, especially for destinations in the developing and the poor countries, especially those that depend on its natural attractions. The quality of environmental surroundings is important for all forms of tourism. Tourists demand places that are unpolluted and free from waste, dirt, and filth. Many tourists also appreciate the wildlife and flora around them, even in the cases where this is not their main purpose of visit to a particular area or a destination. On the other hand, however, the phenomenal growth of the sector has been accompanied by severe environmental and cultural damages, especially in destinations that are close to or have exceeded their carrying capacity limits. The cultural and environmental resources are the assets upon which tourism depends. So these unsustainable impacts of tourism do not only degrade a destination's image but also undermine the long-term viability of the sector. Many newly emerging as well as established destinations promote sustainability but adopt the same old practices with the same adverse effects that have been troubling tourism for the decades. The high rates of growth of tourism over the past 2 decades have seen the expansion of tourism into new destinations and regions in ways that have taken inadequate amount or account of environmental protection, social impacts, or biodiversity conservation. The forecasted expansion of tourism for at least 2 more decades indicates that more attention must be paid to the planning of tourism using tools that can limit its impacts over the long term. Many authors argue that tourism planning is a necessary activity for all countries in order to develop tourism in a sustainable way. The key objectives of tourism planning include a framework for shaping and controlling the physical patterns of development, conservation of resources, as well as framework for marketing the destinations. In its earlier stages, tourism planning was essentially physical or land use planning, with little or no consideration of issues relating to conservation or sustainable development. Williams has suggested that experiences around the globe imply that unplanned tourism development has negative impacts on tourism destinations. The Helsingborg Statement on Sustainable Tourism, which took place during the year 2007, identified that unchecked and unplanned tourism can result in destruction of resources and add up to the imminent problems like climate change, global warming, etc. Paying guest accommodation as a concept of tourism entrepreneurship can be a major economic shot, as it provides the local people with the source of earning without much investment as well as opportunity to learn different cultures. The same existed earlier in the form of Tirath Pandas and sweet mart owners used to provide food and shelter. Tourists coming from outside India are generally fond of local etiquette, mixed household culture, and homemade food. Compared to staying in hotels, which provide typical hotel culture, staying with a local family at a tourist place is both economical and informative for knowing the local people and their culture. Moreover, paying guest accommodation also provides the local people with a source of earning without any investment as well as an opportunity to learn different cultures. The concept of the host community with emphasis on culture and tradition providing paying guest accommodation being the major focus can be positioned with the following frameworks. The above are in existence for long but are neglected in the new wave of sophistication. The same is going to come back in a more professional way. It needs to be properly organized and promoted for tourist attention. My dear students, a host community refers to a group of people who share a common identity, such as geographical locations, topography, class and ethnic background. They may also share a special interest, such as a concern about the destruction of native flora and fauna. The host community provides support services for tourism and may have involvement in its management, but some tourism postulate that the sustainability of the community in a peripheral area tends to decline as tourism intensifies. Tourism destinations usually involve a series of separate elements such as landscape, wildlife, specific activities. The people who best know and understand how these elements functions are the people in the host community who are exposed to them on a regular basis. However, the community is rarely asked by private operators about their vision for the area, nor they have been traditionally part of the planning process. Decisions relating to the likely impacts on the area are often made by planners who do not understand the intricacies or functions of the host community and local tourism resources. Consequently, the tourism industry that evolves does not suit community needs or use the resources to their best advantage, thereby creating unnecessary social pressure on the host community. There are a number of reasons why host communities may consider an ecotourism approach to tourism development. The main principles or elements of ecotourism are designed to maximize the social benefits of tourism while minimizing the socio-cultural and environmental impacts. Let us now discuss about the impact of tourism on the host community or on the host population. Students, tourism is becoming more than ever sensitive to and dependent on the high quality sustainable environment. The researchers mean that development plans should seek to optimize the potential contribution of the human welfare and environmental quality. Planning should be in respect to the environment for the industry to sustain and keep market competitiveness. Basically, approaches to sustainable destination development should look into formulating development policy and strategies on uniqueness of natural and cultural attractions for the destinations, thereby considering its physical, biological, and psychological carrying capacity and developing alternating forms of tourism that will create linkage with the other economic sectors. Reviewing national, regional, local policy framework and strategies as a destination evolve with time, planners to be concerned with all stakeholders in the community, hence developing a product that sits in harmony with the local environment. According to L. Twining, Ward and Butler, in 2002, Samoa has known as a successfully and revitalized tourism industry due to its effective planning and monitoring system framework for sustainable tourism development. Butler beautifully described in the 1980 that destinations go through a cycle of evolution similar to the cycle of a product. That is, all destinations is bound to reach some point of stagnation and decline where signs of negative impacts become more apparent. Destinations will rejuvenate only if sustainable management practices have been considered at early stages of the development. Harrison, through his research, opined that Switzerland, in context of the destination life cycle, underwent paid growth in the British colonial period has since declined rapidly due to bad planning. Planners and decision makers should possess predictable skills to anticipate problems before they happen and take preventive actions rather than curative ones. According to the World Commission on Environment and Development, which was established in 1989, sustainable tourism is defined as development that meets the need of present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. However, Salah Hussain in the year 2000 added to this that using the best planning and development effort, a destination cannot grow or revitalize unless it can provide a high level of healthcare, safety and security for its tourists. Ecotourism can, in an ideal circumstance, provide the following benefits to the host communities. increase demand for accommodation, houses, and food and beverage outlets, and therefore improve viability for new and established hotels, motels, guest houses, farm stays, and homestays, etc. It may also provide additional revenue to local retail businesses and other services, for example, like medical, banking, car hire, cottage industries, souvenir shops, and tourist attractions. It may also increase the market for local products, thereby sustaining traditional customs and practices. Use of labor and expertise. Provide a source of funding for the protection and maintenance of natural attractions and symbols of the cultural heritage. Also providing funding and volunteers for the fieldwork associated with the wildlife research and archaeological studies. Must also create a heightened community awareness of the value of local culture and the natural environment. The information gained from the socio-cultural consultation can also be used by planners to guide decision making in matters such as landscape enhancement, and by the host community to investigate projects they would like to undertake or even operate themselves. My dear students, while a planning process at the community level may appear simple in theory, it is very much complicated by many factors, which includes conflicting interests among stakeholders and lack of prioritization of resource allocation to areas that people feel need the most. If host communities can be involved in the planning process from the beginning, this can reduce the future likelihood of conflict and misinformation among them. No matter which style of vacation you choose, seek ways to support locally owned restaurants. This money will travel not only to the restaurant, tour operator or shopkeeper, but it infuses money into the local communities, sending ripples of economic support throughout the business, entire local supply chain. Here are 3 ways you can commit to leaving more money behind on your next vacation. The first is eat in a locally owned restaurant at least once during your stay to that particular destination. Second is take a walking tour using a local guide in each destination you are supposed to visit. And the third is buy souvenirs made locally in your destination by the locals or by the community. There is no shortage of opportunities to infuse your cash into the local economy. From the moment you leave your doorstep, you have the chance to make spending choices that directly impact how much of your money heads towards multinational corporations and how much stays within the city, region, and country you visited, thus empowering their local entrepreneurs, local community, and boosting their local economy. It takes a strong commitment and follow through to ensure that you are making conscious and deliberate spending decisions when you are traveling to a particular destination. Along with the positive impacts tourism has on the destinations, there are some ill effects or adverse effects also spread in the destinations due to tourism as an after effect of tourism. In the last years, there are many places in the world that the local population develops an anti-tourism sentiments and protest against the tourist. One of the most prominent examples of such a mobilization was the so-called Tourists Go Home movement, which emerged in the year 2014 in the Spain due to the slogans and mottos calling the tourists to go back to their respective homes. Barcelona, as one of the most visited cities of the globe, has millions of tourists per year. The irresponsible behavior of the tourist in association with the overpopulation, usually during the summer months or the summer vacations, caused the range of the local population against the tourists. Besides, citizens also tend to blame platforms such as Airbnb for raising the renting prices and promoting the tourism industry. making it very much difficult for the citizens to find an inexpensive place to live. Venice was also facing such problems, and the tourist go home slogans appeared on the walls of the city. Moreover, several other countries such as Japan and Philippines are having problems with over-tourism. Nevertheless, the year 2017 seems to a landmark for the anti-tourism sentiment as a new Spanish social movement against an economic development model based on mass tourism gained following high-profile attacks targeting foreign tourists and local business interests. The anti-tourism sentiments also seems to be linked with a clash of identity and people's individualism. My dear students, let us now summarize this module, what all we have discussed in this module. The World Tourism Organization UNWTO forecast that international tourism will continue growing at the average annual rate of 4% with the advent of e-commerce. Tourism products have become prominent traded items on the internet. Tourism products and services have been made available through intermediaries, although tourism providers like the service providers which are there in the tourism business like the hotels, hoteliers, restaurant owners, airlines, etc., including small scale operators, can sell their services directly to the consumers. This has put pressure on intermediaries from both online and the traditional shops. It has been suggested that there is a strong correlation between tourism expenditure per capita and the degree to which countries play in the global context. Not only as a result of the important economic contribution of the tourism industry, but also as an indicator of the degree of confidence with which global citizens leverage the resources of the globe for the benefit of their local economies. This is why any projections of growth in tourism may serve as an indication of the relative influence that each country will exercise in the future. Governments around the globe are using tourism to create an undeniably positive impact on local communities. Just last year, like China announced, it will move 12 million people out of poverty through tourism development programs that will provide jobs to more people in the rural areas. Travelers concisely exercising their purchasing power can effectively redistribute money from the developed world into the developing countries. And while tourism in general spreads the money, it's local level tourism specifically that has such a profound effect on poverty alleviation. And it's here that travelers and the industry must more fully commit to using tourism for good. There's a lot of room for improvement in both the industry and in the traveler spending habits on the road. Pro-poor tourism, which seeks to help the poorest people or the poorest communities in the developing countries or in the developing nations, has been receiving increasing attention by those who are involved in development. The issue has been addressed through small-scale projects in local communities and through attempts by the ministries of the various nations who are there to promote tourism to attract large number of tourists to their countries, particularly in the rural areas. Researches by various agencies suggest that neither is the best way to encourage tourists money to reach to the poorest, as only 25% or less, far less than 25% in some cases, ever reach to the poor. Successful examples of money reaching in poor include mountain climbing in Tanzania and cultural tourism in Luang Prabang, Laos. There is also the possibility of pro-poor tourism principles being adopted in the center sites of regeneration in the developed world. And with these words, I would like to sum up this module. Thank you very much.